before we go back into Word, let's just go over a couple of other little things real quick. I may have done the first day, but I don't think I did. But today they reminded us to go over, which is emergency procedures. If there is a fire alarm, exits are on the end of the halls. It's not marked through the building like it should be. So there should be signs in every room that points out what your route out is. But there is a sign over there by the elevator that tells us. So that's one thing. Just be aware of that. Because if the fire alarm does go off, y'all need to leave the building. I was teaching at one school one time and the fire alarm went off, and I headed towards the hallway with most of the students, and the hallway was full of smoke. As it was, our classroom had a door to the outside, and I told them, all right, we've got to go out that door. As we're heading out the door, I realized there's still two students sitting there still working on their computers. And that was with smoke in the hall, over on the other hall, still working there. I'm going, you need to get out of the building. So, and normally when I exit buildings, schools and stuff, it was part of my responsibility at one school, is that I look in the rooms as I go down the hall, checking them to see if there's anybody still there. So if the fire alarm does go off somewhere, exit the building. You do have people that have died in fires in different commercial places that chose to ignore the fire alarm to keep on doing something. Because when the MGM hotel burned back in the 80s, they had a number of people die in it because they wanted to still sit there at the slot machines and such and keep on gambling, even though the alarms were going off and there was smoke filling the casino. So use some intelligence. Okay? Because if they did win at that point, it didn't do them a whole lot of good. As it was, and the reason I know on that one is there was a big computer show that was being held at that point on it, so it was big in all the computer papers and everything, besides being in the others. But the computer ones really played it up about that fire. I wish that show still went on today. They used to have it in Atlanta also. I wished I could have ever gone to the Las Vegas one because it was supposed to have been fabulous. The ton of stuff there, people that went have told me. And I went to the Atlanta one a number of times, and it was really neat with a ton of things scattered all over downtown Atlanta showing. But they don't have it anymore. And I used to actually take students to the show. So do be aware of that. Second one is, today was supposed to be Tornado Awareness Day, but that has been put off until Friday because there's a chance of bad weather across Georgia again today, just as there was yesterday. So they've put it off so that people wouldn't get confused when alarms or whatever went off of whether it was a real one or the other. On that one, again, we don't have any emergency procedures posted in here or in any other rooms in the building about what to do, but I've contacted the head of security for the whole college and asked him, well, where are we supposed to go in this building? Because if you're over on the Walker campus, basically you're supposed to go to the restrooms on the lower floor if it's a multi-floor building. This one, it is either restrooms or, according to him, the hallway in the office area downstairs. However, the hallway in the office area has a problem that apparently he's not fully aware on because our directions, and if you've ever seen on where you're supposed to take shelter from a tornado is, you don't want glass around you. Okay? Which means this classroom's out. First off, we're on the outside. You want to get to the center of the building, which is the reason for the restrooms, is that generally restrooms don't have windows in them. Okay? Now I'll put that as a generally. Because yes, your home ones quite often do have a window to the outside. And B, Turner Stadium, that their restrooms up on the club level has an entire wall of glass across on it. If any of you have ever been to the restroom on the club level at Turner Stadium, that one freaked me out when I was there and saw that the first time I went to the restroom there. And the only time I ever got to sit on that level was the very first game Turner Stadium was open, that they had the very first regular season game. Somehow they hadn't sold all the tickets for that game, and the night before on TV they were announcing that they still had tickets available for the next night. And I was with a couple of friends in Swainsboro and watching the game, and I was actually working in Elberton then, and we made the comment to each other, ooh, it'd be neat to go see the game, to go to the first game at the stadium. And they'd said on that there was tickets still available, and we went, wonder if there really is. And so one of them called up there to order tickets, and there were 7 of us that wanted to go, and they said, yeah, they had some tickets, and they did have 7 tickets together, but there was one problem. Usually you sit that way going across in the stadium when you sit together, right? Their 7 tickets was up and down. So each one of us on a different row, but we were straight lined up on the club level, and they had them cheap for us. They didn't. So we had to go into the inner security area and then have the special food booths and everything for us. And then I say the restroom and stuff, that unless you have a ticket to that level, you can't get back in there. So we got back in there, and then when people started leaving and shifting around, by the second inning or so, we all got to sit together anyway, which is what we figured, that we were going, yeah, we'll take those. But then when I went to the restroom and walked into the restroom, and there's a whole wall of glass there to the outside, but bear in mind you're way on up, but you're looking over at the interstate, that with it you really can't see anything from outside because of the elevation and height, but it's a little weird there. Oh, the restroom open to the glass like that, and every time I drive by Turner Stadium I'll glance over and think about that one on it. So, but you do want to pick a place that is not got glass around you, because if the building did get hit by it, the glass is going to break and start flying, and you've got the chance of getting cut then, besides the crushing, etc. But cutting really messing you up. So probably the best places in the building here is restrooms downstairs, and actually the hallway, not down by the windows where it goes along by the offices, but where it turns back in and goes along by the EMT classroom and a couple other rooms along there. But that's probably our best bet to get into. Stairwells are obviously out in this building, because guess what? They are glass encased. So we definitely don't want them. So, but was their suggestion, was the hallway in the office area. Well, there's space back in there if you've been back in there. There's a lot of space there, but it's glass in every office all the way around it. So you got glass walls all the way around you. So that doesn't make real good sense. So if we do have a tornado warning here, we want to head downstairs and probably stay to the hallway, or at minimum just go across the hall into the restrooms. And the men's restroom is probably the better location than the women's restroom, because the men is completely inside, the women's got the exterior wall to it. And obviously for the purpose of us crowding in there during a tornado, it doesn't make any difference which restroom we go into. Okay? It is a room at that point. So be aware on that also. Just as a reminder, I know I did tell you this part, and I've sent you emails telling you too, if you're not on the alert system, you need to get on the alert system, which is that red alert button on the main page of the school website, which will send you emergency warnings and stuff about things that are affecting the school. It is, if you look at the list, this campus is not listed, but that really doesn't make any difference. They told me when I pointed that one out to them that they send all of the alerts out to everybody. It's not you just get, if you were to sign up by campus, that you only got that campus's alerts. They're not doing that, but why they haven't either removed all the campuses or added Catoosa on the list, I don't know. But they said just sign up for the overall and that you're covered. I do know I'm signed up out there for Walker and the on the Walker and I think another one, and that I get them for all campuses anyway. That's when they've had a problem in one of the others. And the only things you'll get from that is emergency. So likewise, if a tornado warning was issued or a tornado watch is issued, they have sent that out over that when it's during school day. So like us sitting here in the classroom, if suddenly we went under a tornado warning right now, some of us might know because we get a notification because we're already on one of the county alert systems, but we might not catch it, and if we've got the phones on us, that we'd catch the fact that the school had sent out notifying us that we're under warning. And that's the reason I told y'all could keep your phones in here turned on. It's just let's put them all on vibrate, which I'm pretty sure mine is sitting on, because I don't think I ever took it off vibrate yesterday. Nope, I didn't. Because if all of our phones all go to vibrating at the same time, and we go look down at our phone, we're going to realize something's going on. Mine, I've signed up for all 3 systems that they've got on it, because you can get either text, emails, or phone calls. Phone call usually's got about a 5-minute delay after the text go out. So the text one seems to go out the quickest when they've sent stuff out. If we got to be closed or whatever, it'll be on that system. Does everybody follow on that? And likewise, if there's some emergency, but it's supposed to be only emergency stuff, and that's the only stuff I've seen on it, or of the several years we've been using it, I've seen 1 or 2 times where it was a practice one, it was a test message, and they told you it was a test message. But otherwise, the only ones have been some emergency on some campus, or the fact that we're closing school because of weather conditions. So that's the biggest place it's handy for us, as you'll know if we don't have school. Hopefully my email on me being gone this week was clear this time, that I am here today. Obviously y'all all figured that out since everyone is here. That I won't be here tomorrow, which I don't think affects any of you, because none of you have me for the one class I teach tomorrow. So I've canceled that one class because I have a statewide meeting of the CIS instructors, and what we do there is we update and determine what new courses in the computer area to teach, to offer and stuff, and what courses to get rid of and what courses need changes, except for this class that we really don't have much control on. We created this class originally, and now the state's made it into a broader area, because after all it applies to people all over the school, and they're doing renovation to the course right now and not including any computer instructors and changing this course. I see the object of including all the other people in it, because so that we'll know what is the different areas need to know. But I think you need the computer instructors involved also when it's a computer class. And then they're deciding whether or not it'll continue to be a required class for everybody across the school or not. There's several concepts on that one out there. One is, because for a number of you took it in high school, and that you already know. Some of you have done a bunch of stuff and already know, and it's been dropped in some programs where they said they're going to cover it in other areas, and then some programs that hasn't, and so they're trying to decide what to do about that. And the fact that now, because when we created this course back in 1990, most people had never done anything with the computer. And there's still some of that, because we've obviously got a whole mix y'all figured out in here. from people that know nothing to people that know a fair amount. Okay? So we've got to have something out there still, and how they're going to handle that's the question about those that don't know anything about computers or don't know how to do word processing. Because if you don't know how to do that, you're going to have a hard time in your classes here or any other college. So, we went through most of this the other day. About the only things we didn't do, so we talked about changing fonts, we moved and copied, we did the line breaks, non-breaking spaces, page breaks also, that's not in here, but I taught you anyway. And we got to do the text alignment, and we mentioned spelling and grammar, but we'll touch on that again. It automatically does spelling and checking of grammar. There's no document on here, so I was just going to open a document. So let me, I know I've got the thumb drive in here somewhere. And then this brilliant part of I got to go behind the monitor to plug in the thumb drive. They weren't thinking when they designed that one. Most of the time, the plugins are on the side of the monitor. And you can reach that from the front, but they're on the back. If we were at a desk, that would not work real well. At least I can walk around the back of this one. So I'm going to, should be one of my articles, should be on my thumb drive. That we can use it to work from. Let's see, article. Because if I write the articles when I'm some other location, usually I save them on thumb drive and then put them on my main computer. So this is one of my weekly articles from December of 15, so it's over a year old. This one is on what is a Google Doodle. That's when you go on Google and you know the little drawing it's got up there where the word Google is, it changes every day and it commemorates something usually. That's what this article is about that is the Google Doodle. That's what they call it. And you can actually submit things to them for it. Because they're always using something different. And some days it's interesting to see that you go on there and you're going, wait a minute, what is it that they're commemorating today of how they've done a drawing around some event or somebody. And sometimes it's obscure people you've never heard of. And sometimes it's things you know about when you look at it and you go, I know what it is. And if when you registered with Google, setting up your Google account, if you gave them your birthday, it will change to a happy birthday on your birthday with candles and everything on there. So it's personalized too.
They had last Halloween, I don't know if you all noticed it, they had a cat, it was Google, and you could play a game.
Oh, did they?
From Google. It was
so they have fun with that one. And so we'll discover in here that I actually do have a spelling error in the thing, but it's picked it up as a grammar error instead of a spelling error, because it is a legal spelling, but it's not the word that's supposed to be there. And that does happen on me. So if we're coming into this, let's look at the spelling and let's go grammar checker first. If there was spelling errors in here, and let's make a real spelling error where it's going to give us a spelling error. So we'll make doodle into, I think, 1-O. Yep. We'll have it misspelled now. So that's supposed to be doodle, but I didn't type enough O's. Okay? So it's going to underline it in red. So as you work in Word, it's going to be auto-checking for you. Now, sometimes it misses something. The other part is if you mistype words, it's not going to catch on that, or if you spell it as another word. So you do need to glance back through your document and see if everything is spelled actually correctly. So read back through it, glancing on it. So in this case, it underlined it with red. The red underline there with the squiggly underline, which that's actually not a solid underline. Maybe if we increase the font or increase the size right down here. So we can stay with the font size. You still can't tell with the projector. Y'all can read my print up here better now. But that's actually a squiggly little underline instead of if you'd underlined with red. But you can also choose that, remember? We said if you chose underline that it had a drop down arrow by it, and you could choose colors that you underline with and types of underlines, and that's one of them you could choose. But that's what they've chosen just to make these things stand out. So all it is that it's highlighted there for you. We could fix that by just right-clicking on it and not before the word, because if you go before the word, it usually won't get the spell checking for you. You got to be in the word. Does everybody follow that? So if I go in the word and then right-click, it will give me suggestions about what the word could be. Okay? Sometimes the word you meant there is not on the list, even though it's a common word. It's taking its guess from what you had there, and sometimes you can be off by one letter just like we are right now, and it gives you all of these other things there except for the one you want, and you're going, how did you come up with that? Well, it's just their algorithm on figuring out what it is one suggestion. Well, in this case, which in most cases, it's going to usually be one of the top two words that's on the list, which is what the one is right here. It's got doodle as the one it's supposed to be, as that. So then we could choose that. I'm not going to choose it right here because I'm going to show you the other way we can do also. So it has shown us in our document our spelling and grammar things, but we can also run over here on review. We can choose spelling and grammar checker here. And usually if you see a button in one of your programs out there that says ABC and a check mark, that's your grammar spell checker. So if you go into other programs, if you want to spell check it, look for that ABC and a check mark is usually the normal one for that. So then it pops up for us. Sometimes it pops up as a box for us, or in this case it popped up as a side one for us. And that it's told us here that we've got a spelling error. Gives us those same options again, and says we can choose to ignore. We ignore every case of this. So this was really how we meant to spell this word, and it's throughout our document. We can say ignore all, and it's not going to tell us the rest of it. Okay, it's going to go, okay, that's how you want it in this document. And we can do add. What add will do is it adds it to its dictionary. So this is if this was a word that we actually did want spelled that way, you'll hit words like that. Sometimes city names that you're dealing with or whatever, that it doesn't have that name out in the dictionary, and you use it all the time, that you can add to your dictionary, and it won't ever, it'll actually check for the correct spelling on your city off that deal. So the add is handy. Or we can choose change or change all. If we do the change, or the change all, it does them to everywhere we've got one of these somewhere misspellings. And notice it actually gives us a definition down here for what a doodle is. The one that's got marked right here, it actually defines it down here for us too. It tells us what in the world it is vaguely in the definition. So it tells us it's a drawing, a draw, or a sketch. So we'll do change. And actually, we just chose to use that one. Duh, that wasn't what I meant to do. Next one is that it caught a grammar error, and notice it's caught a grammar error here now, running this one that it did not catch on where it automatically did stuff. Because it didn't tell us a minute ago about, however, having a grammar problem. That wasn't showing on the other list, just showing common in the document. It didn't show us that one. This one and this one it did show us, but it didn't show us this one. Because it tells us here that, however, you should have a comma after it to get it correct grammatically. And so, again, we've got our choices on that we can do ignore or change with the option right here. You can actually click into here or click over there on it while you're running this, and we can still make our little change to it. And they tell us down there about what the violation we've done is, that we should have a comma after introductory phrases. And so we could type it in over here and have it take effect, or we can choose the option on the list there. And then, because we typed it over in the document, we got to tell it to resume spell checker, grammar checker on us, because we have gone back into editing the document. But we've really got this thing still running, so we can resume. And then it tells us about whatever is wrong there. And it, on the older versions, it will actually have a box below where you can type in the change, sitting working in here, as opposed to going back over in the document approach. So they've changed that with 16, so I could again choose change. And actually has it where you can listen to about it too, about what the difference is between what I've put there and what they are suggesting, which is really what it should be. And then there that it says, it tells us that we've got a grammatical error in terms of fro. Should be for. Fro is a legal word, so it's not a spelling error, okay? Which you can toss to and fro. Okay? So you do use that word out there. But that's not the word we want it here. It doesn't fit in there, so we can change it to for. Does everybody see how spell checker is going to work on you and grammar checker? So that's a grammar issue that it caught there. That's really a spelling issue. So we choose it. From was the one it was choosing for it, because it's going, okay, probably you want from is to put on the top of the list. I want it for actually, and then I'll click change. It changes it. At this point now it says it's completed the whole document and that we've made all our changes to it, so it closes itself out. And so you can go through and use that. Now, like I say, on spelling errors, sometimes it is spelled correctly, but it's not in their dictionary. Okay? And so sometimes you're going to go, no, I spelled it correctly, and that you just want to ignore the spelling error on it. Sometimes it's going to, the grammar errors are not really grammar errors because of the way you have written on it, that it's only looking one way on it. And I can't remember if it was first tense or past tense, whatever on it, that it's going to look in terms of that for your grammar. It's not going to catch all grammar errors, but it's looking in terms of how does it really look. It'll catch a lot of grammar errors. And you see right there that it caught a couple in that one. And if you keep paying attention to what it tells you about your errors, you can improve your own grammar from it, so that you don't keep typing the same ones again and again. Because like however, I have learned that one along the way, that you need a comma after however they're on it. And several others on it. So if we looked at my newer ones, you won't see that on it, but that was in that one. Sometimes the ones on my thumb drive are also hurriedly typed, sitting in a motel or whatever, where I'm not doing quite as well on it. So, so you can work with those as you do and get some better on it. My fingers, in my case, 4 for some reason typically comes off my fingers as F-R-O instead of F-O-R. I don't understand, but every time I go to type it, I know what I'm typing and how I'm supposed to type it correctly, but as I'm typing there, it does that the for me, and y'all will catch this occasionally in my announcements or emails to you where I didn't. On the announcements particularly, because announcements doesn't run spell checker in Blackboard. Email does, but if it's an email off an announcement, it doesn't spell check it. If it was just a regular email from Blackboard, it actually does spell checking, and as far as what's posted out there, it does spell checking on it. But you'll catch occasionally I'll have the as T-E-H instead of T-H-E. Yes, I do know how to spell the, but for some reason my fingers consistently want to put the H-E backwards on the. So sometimes you can go, I know Dr. Watt really did type that message to me because the is misspelled on there. And we've all got little intricacies like that on us. And that us as instructors will catch it on y'all also of know without a doubt that what you posted on the discussion board really was your posting, because it's got the way you have on grammar or some spelling thing that I've consistently seen you misspell on it. I got a Facebook message from a guy last night. I was at a meeting in Copper Hill, and 2 of us were sitting there and going, why is this guy not gotten here? That he had told me on Saturday he would be there at the meeting, and he told this other guy the night before that he would be at the meeting last night. And we were both going, why is he not here? And we went, he would have texted us almost always about if he wasn't going to be here after all, if something came up. I said, well, he usually sends a Facebook message to me, and Facebook messages usually pop up on the main screen. But then I thought for a second, I went, wait a minute, they don't pop up on the main screen now for some reason on my phone anymore. Now, I don't know what happened on that, but I really liked it where it popped up and gave me a little thing there. Sometimes it got irritating about the icon getting in the way of something else, but it was there. So I looked in there, and he said that unfortunately he had mononucleosis and pneumonia and was not going to be able to make it. And I looked at the thing and I read it, and so then I told the others that he wasn't going to be able to make it because he had that. And I said, what's really weird is, I said, he spelled mono and pneumonia out completely correctly, but have was J-A-V-E. I had to stop and read it twice. I was J and have was J-A-V-E. And I'm looking at this and going, no, it was I was O. O, J-A-V-E, and then mononucleosis spelled out looked correct. And then it was a mile long like it's supposed to be, and it really looked correct. He may have had a letter wrong in it, but I couldn't tell it. It looked awful close correct, and pneumonia was completely correct with the N in it and everything, starting with the P. And that I went, he spelled those 2 words correctly, and he couldn't spell I have correctly at all. As everybody said, when I said, and he spelled those 2 words correctly, and they said, spell checker. I said, I don't think it's spell checker, because I said he couldn't spell I have. So that was odd on it, because if y'all think about it, y'all probably all, just like me, of how in the world we spell pneumonia and mononucleosis, that we'd probably all come up with, the 9 of us sitting in here, on those 2 words, come up with 9 spellings of them. But be close enough, we'd all know what in the word was we really meant to it. Because especially the mono, if I was typing it to you and had mononucleosis, I'd just tell you I had mono. I wouldn't worry about the whole rest of that mile-long word and let you figure that part out. Because even when people say that they've got it, they don't even try to normally pronounce that as just, we've got mono. So spell checker is really good for you. Just be careful with it at times, that it can. The other part is that it will quite often, sometimes the word does include now where it will auto-correct for you too. So it will fix some words for you as you're going along. So that will happen to you occasionally also, and sometimes you got to watch that one that it doesn't autocorrect the words you didn't want autocorrected. Does everybody follow on that? And so you'll see that's happened in spell checker some too, and Microsoft's actually got that in there where it does some autocorrect, but it's limited on the autocorrect. That's really part of artificial intelligence on where it's going to, you're seeing limited AI with the autocorrect. And sometimes they'll come out with the wrong thing for you when it goes to correct your spelling. So just be careful with that it can goof you up on it. Questions on that? So that's spell checker and grammar checker, and those are real handy. And actually, if we go backwards and think on this, that Word costs a good bit of money. So you go buy Office, it's going to cost you over $100. And if you really bought the whole package at full price of the full package, not the student version that they sell in the stores, but they really don't check to see if people are students or not for that one. If you go and look in Windows, there's a program out there called WordPad, which is a limited word processing program. It will actually let you do bolding, change fonts, all types of stuff in there. The one thing it does not let you do as far as basic word processing, if they'd ever do this, a lot of people would not need a word processor program because WordPad would do it for them, because it does not have spell checker. But it does all of the other limited things, and that's sitting back there in Windows Accessories. Let's glance at that real quick. Because if you don't have a word processor on your computer and you're going, well, I'd have to buy one, or I got to go get Open Office or the other free one, LibreOffice, I believe is what it is, and you're going, I don't really like the way they work. WordPad, now Notepad's different. Notepad will just work as text documents. It won't let you put graphics into it or anything. And that it won't let you change fonts or anything. It stays in text format, into a very plain format. So that works good if you're writing computer programs, and if you were just writing a note to yourself that you were going to say, just a note to yourself, nothing fancy. So Notepad's a nice little program there, but for what we're talking about right here, as soon as it starts. So there's WordPad. Notice that looks similar to the ribbon that we're talking about up there. It's the same ribbon if we were back on File up here. Not File, but Home. Wait a minute, it didn't change. Notice, that's basically the same ribbon you've got sitting up there. There's your font stuff. Identically the same things down underneath there. One or two extra little things here that we can draw in here that you couldn't draw. That you had more capabilities up there on doing a little bit of stuff. But we can center, we can insert pictures, we can draw, do paint drawing down in here, etc. All down in here, similar up there, except we don't have the fancy things sitting in here. But as far as a basic document, you can do it perfectly fine in here. It's just the big difference between here and there, between WordPad and Word is, other than it doesn't have the advanced features, so WordPad's a stripped down one, is it doesn't have spell checker. If they'd ever put spell checker in here, a large amount of the world out there would not need a word processing program. Because almost everything I do in word processing, I could do here, no problem. It's just I want spell checker. Now, if any of you in here, and there may be one of you, is a perfect typist and does not make any mistakes, then this would work perfectly fine for you for your word processing. However, for most of us in here, we all make typos. So we need that spell checker. Okay? It's just like when I was in college and on my master's degree, I had a 40-page paper that I had to type for one course, which is like a thesis. and that secretary of the business department, which is whether it's getting it in, that she would charge us $1 a page to type those papers for us, and she went through them and she grammar checked our whole paper for us, because I remember when I gave it to her to type for me, and so I had to pay her $40 to type it. She called me the next morning and said, "You've got to come back and get this paper from me." She said, "My red pen ran out of ink last night." She said, "You got to go back through and make a whole bunch of corrections to it." And she had gone through and grammar checked the whole thing and had all kinds of corrections for me. And then she typed it after I rewrote it for her. I got a 98 on the paper, and so it was worth the $40 to pay her to do that. My doctorate for the dissertation, I typed that one because that was done with the word processing capabilities out there, but I had 2 English teachers that went through continuously checking my mistakes all through it, and my major professor, and so it got checked by them, and they were nice enough to not charge me anything. And that I typed it all up myself, and because you really didn't have at that point in '89 that you didn't have very good spell checking on the word processors, because they were still earlier on, because they'd only been out for about 7 years at that point, 6 or 7 years. So I didn't have much capability on that. Today it would be a whole lot easier on me. As a matter of fact, my dissertation was the first one done on a word processor at the University of Georgia. There was a secretary there that checked it off to make sure you had to have exact margins on your paper. When she went to check through the whole thing, she wasn't reading it, she was just making sure the layout was all correct. You had all your footnotes exactly correct, referenced back and forth, and sitting in the right location. And she had a little piece of cardboard she laid over it, which I had a copy of also, they gave us. But when she went through the thing, she went, whoa, as she was getting near the end of it, 120 pages, she going, "How did you do this? I've never had a student before that had this few errors," and she'd only found 2 errors at that point, and then she got to the last page and she found 3 errors. And she said, "If you had less than 3 errors, has always been the rule," and she said, "and we've never had anybody meet the rule." She said, "You wouldn't have to make any corrections to it and we'd publish it just as is." She said, "You got to go back and fix those 3 errors." But she said, "But how did you do this? Because we've never had anyone typing it up, even hiring a typist like I had done there on my master's, not have errors, because if you goofed up on the page, you had to retype the whole page." And I said, "I did it on the word processor." And she said, "Yeah, but this isn't computer printed." I said, "It's done on a laser printer," and that was right when First Lasers printers had come out, that I had a friend that had bought one for like $4,000. And he let me, he was a photographer, and he let me go in his shop and run his laser printer all one Saturday afternoon to print the thing. And I'd print a page, lay my little grid on it, see if it was right. If it wasn't, go back in, make my correction, print it again. I probably printed the whole thing 4 times that day trying to get it exact on it. So I had to go back and print a couple of pages again to meet her, because it was, they were very picky on it, that it had to be, you couldn't break the margin lines, and then you had to have exact ways things were. That was a difficult part of it, but getting all the research done was, all the literature review was the hard part to me. All right, so everybody follow on this part? So
I don't know what we did on that part. Was that setting margins?
we're not setting margins yet. I'm going to show you how to set margins. But here in WordPad, so you saw spelling and grammar checker, but you've also seen WordPad now, which the book doesn't tell you about.
Okay.
But notice here we can right click in here and get the same type of things. We can actually set our margins just like in WordPad. We can actually set them in here. Now it is giving us, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it up here. It is giving us a grid line up here that sets our margins for us, where we can change them. It's still the old format on this, so we can actually change up here where this will show us the same thing. But it gives us right here what our margin is, so that our margin right now is set at a 1/2 inch on the paper, because there's a 1 inch line. And that we can adjust these little buttons up here, that we can draw those back and forth to change where we want it. So if we wanted an inch margin instead, we can grab this bottom one and drag it over here to 1, where's the inch. And the only problem is we didn't do it everywhere, so it didn't turn this gray. I wanted to apply everywhere. And there's my left tab. That you can get your tabs put in here too. So you can adjust these back and forth as you want on a line-by-line basis. So you can change that in there, or we can actually go in. So that's where you're going to have to change it in this one. Now, back there in Word, so I'm not going to save that. If we go to Layout,
What'd you say?
if I go to Layout,
Oh, layout.
so I'm going to the Layout tab, so I'm going to the Layout ribbon. We've got margins, we've got orientation. Orientation is, are you using the paper in portrait, which is your normal format, or landscape, which is where you got turned sideways. So, like your book right there is in portrait. You got plenty of other things, particularly forms you're going to fill out and stuff will be in landscape to make them wider and get more stuff across there. But you can choose that just by clicking on orientation, and it will give you a choice of, do we want this to be landscape or portrait. So notice it's just a button to choose whichever one you want. So do you want to turn the paper sideways or not? We can control the size of the paper. That's what size does. And it's got a bunch of predefined ones sitting there for us. We're in letter. We could go to legal. Those are the two you're normally going to use, but we've got tabloid, a whole bunch of other things. Those A1s are actually sizes that are used in Europe. Okay, so they're most commonly used in Europe. You see those there. You can do envelopes in here too to make it an envelope, and where it's envelope size for you, and that's whether it's pen or the other type sizes of it. And there's even more of them down there. The two you're normally concerned with is either you want it either be letter size paper or legal size paper, or an envelope. And the number 10 envelope is the wide envelope, the standard wider one. This is the small one that you got to fold the paper again extra, remember, in, which is the one people usually have at home, but when they send legal business stuff out, they're using 10s. We can go to columns, but we won't do that, so that's another place. Breaks, I actually showed you how to do your page break. You don't have to go to here to do the page break, that you can just do the Control Enter and get a page break, or you can click on here, and that there's the different type breaks there that you can tell it out page breaks, and that you can tell it sections and everything else, and tell it do certain things on odd and even pages, which actually was a rule back there on my dissertation, that odd pages had different margins than even pages, because that's to allow for the binding part. You want a wider in the center, so you had to have that accounted for there too. That was what confused most people, because they were wanting to make them all the same margins on every page. Then spacing before and after right here, that is how much spacing occurs before and after a paragraph. And notice what we've got space right here for. If I was to highlight this, I'm going to highlight this, and that I didn't like that amount of spacing between those two paragraphs. So now I've got those two paragraphs chosen, and right now it says that my spacing is 10 points after. So it's got a 10-point space there between those. So it's giving basically a whole size thing, because my print, I think, maybe a 10 or 12 point right there. If I change that number from 10 point, and we're going to jump it up, make it 20. See what's happening there? That it makes it more space on it. Or if I was going, I want less spacing between those paragraphs, I can shrink that on down and actually put it to 0, where there is no difference. And notice that we can tell where this paragraph ends and this paragraph ends. So that we have
Okay,
0
my
spacing.
day and time, it was double space.
Hmm?
I said my day and time when I did a paragraph, then
So,
I double
if
space.
you-
So what,
Which is
what number would
essentially
that
what
be?
it had.
Yeah,
That's what,
okay.
by
Is that
10 points, since we were with 10-point type,
Does that make
that's what
sense?
we were doing,
Okay.
okay? But like if you wanted a half space,
Yes, sir.
and remember, you could do such a thing, or now, right now, we've got a single space between paragraphs, okay, to go back to
But now
your
they're just
typing
giving me
terms.
all these points. And
Now
things
they're
like
doing
that.
it in points,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
So, now, and you can choose to do it before the paragraph starts to say we're going to jump so much, or after. And that will affect when you put around pictures and stuff more of whether you want to choose before or after, because you may want to choose on the before, so that after a picture, that then saying before the paragraph starts, then to get some more space in there, or you can hit the enter to do it too, back to your old typing days. Okay? So I'm going to bump that back to 10. Whoa. Why it's not wanting to. And it went to automatic. Automatic's another one where it automatically, depending on your font sizes, chooses on it. So if you went to bigger font, it's going to increase it accordingly. If you did just 10 point like it had chosen there, it's going to stay that same width no matter how big you make the type. So auto's there, an option there too. And you can actually sit there and type in the size you want. So if I want it 10, I can, whoops. I can type 10. Well, I know what my problem is. Numlock's not on, and I'm sitting here using the number keys. I'm going, why is this not typing? Because now notice it types nicely. So it would have typed for me to start with, but I forgot I was in arrows. I like keyboards to go to Numlock by default, but they don't have that set on these. Because your on your number pad over there on the side of your keyboard, that you've got to have Numlock on to be able to type numbers using that portion of the keyboard, or else you're using arrows right there. I prefer for Numlock to just be automatically on. Notice it turns a little light on above it that tells you the Numlock's on these keyboards. Some keyboards don't have any light there, and you have to look up on the screen, because actually when you hit Numlock, well, usually Windows 10 pops up here and shows it locked or unlocked with a number in the lock. But this one's not for some reason. And then when you type it in, you would hit enter for that to take effect there. That is there in. That while you were typing, it didn't do anything. Indent, think back to her typing days, and they can still do it occasionally, that you went 5 spaces over to indent the beginning of the paragraph, okay? You're not doing that very much now, but you may still do that. And but it's going to not be doing that way by default in Word. If you want your paragraphs indented, you've got to go up there and tell it on the indent to tell it again. In this case is in inches for you. And that's actually a ½ inch is what we were doing with 5 spaces. Okay?
What is it, 8 inches you said?
No, he's translating. My 5 is a half
And so
inch.
that your 5 was a ½ of an inch, okay? So you put that as 0.5, okay? So you can, if you have got a document you're wanting to put as indented ones and that you didn't put spaces between paragraphs then, because I'm not a typing teacher, so I can't tell you the correct names for those formats that we're doing here.
Yeah, box style, that's what you're
So we're doing box style here versus the standard style where you indent at the beginning of the paragraph, but you didn't space between paragraphs, okay? That now everything's gone box style, okay? So you can control that. You can also tell it. And the indent also works nicely for, like, if we wanted this paragraph here indented, the whole paragraph, that by us highlighting it here and using the indent here, it will move it in. So it jumps by 0.4 by default on it, but I can choose a value myself. Notice it has moved it in there. I'm going to shrink this back down so y'all can see the whole thing, because you need to see the whole thing to see what I'm going to do next. There. If I do the right one, it indents it from the right also. And this, we may want this stuff in here indented both from the left and right to make it stand out better in there. And so I could choose the right indent, and you see where it pulled it in from the right side for us. Or you can do the whole document and do your indents accordingly also. You also have the ability to turn on line numbering. If you were typing this for a legal organization, the line numbering one is important for you there. So we can actually come up here.
I need that for scriptures.
And that you can do line numbering just by clicking on line number. And you can tell it how you want to do the line number. That we can say continuous. And notice it's got all our lines numbered there. And so now, and let's say, legal documents, you're going to definitely run that into. So if any of you were working in a legal office or whatever, you definitely use this little one. Because when they're dealing with legal documents, they'll say line such and such, and they've got them numbered on the document and know exactly what line it is. So you can turn on line numbering real simply and get right there. So, well, I could have sent that to y'all with line numbering, and then you could write back and go, Dr. Watt, you have got an error on line number 14, and I would know exactly where you were talking about. And not have to sit there and count lines. And if it's a real long document, our eyes can start going crazy.
I'm like catching up to speed. If I write a document now in 2017, am I supposed to write it more on a block style?
On block style. Block style is what it's normally going to be most of the time.
Okay.
Okay? That's where everything's gone now, where block style used to be for special
Yes,
stuff.
sir. Okay.
Now everything's essentially gone block style.
I think my writing teacher hates block style.
Hmm?
I think my writing teacher hates block style.
Hates it.
I think so.
So block style was not the way normally
No.
done in the past, but word processors want to go block style. Okay? So you will have to sometimes change on that. So if we went and changed indent here, it changes it just on that line. But and then you've got the alignment capabilities also in here. So right now, everything's sitting left aligned, and that we can tell it to align the objects to something. If I'll hit the drop down arrow. That we can align to margin, etc. If we highlight this area, if we were to highlight the whole document, which is really what you want to do if you're going to go through doing this. Why is it not giving me the align to left? For some reason that's not doing up there. Okay. The other way you can do on this is you can also right click on the area you want chosen. And we can come down here to paragraph, and it gives us the same type of things. Now it tells us the alignment is left. For some reason that we want this aligned right. And there's occasionally stuff you want aligned right, but this probably isn't. And so we can choose align right. Click OK. And notice everything lines up in a straight line on the left side. Okay? And there is things you do that way. You can also align center, which you definitely will use some. And remember, if you goof up on this, the undo key that's up there, the undo button's always sitting up there. Or we can right align again, or choose right again. Fonts also available down here, just like we said it was up top on the home tab or ribbon. And that synonyms is down here too, that we didn't mention about, but you could choose a word down here that if we didn't want Google to be our word here, we can actually right click on there, choose synonyms, and it will actually give us any suggestions, if it had suggestions for a synonym for Google, or we can go to the thesaurus and see if it has any out there and it's thesaurus on it. So you've actually got a built-in thesaurus for you too. That's probably the most unused feature sitting out there, that they put it in there. Somebody thought it would be really neat to put in. And so hyperlink is where we would choose that word and put a web page that's linked to it so that somebody could just click on that web page in the document and it takes them to, click on that word and it takes them to the web page. Y'all follow on that? So if we did that, and that's not covered in there either, but I'm going to throw it in here for you as a freebie, that we can hyperlink to a web page that we could tell it to put the address right here of that if we wanted that to go to dwightwatt.com, we could put dwightwatt.com right here, and if they click on it, it would take them to my web page. And that's how you do that, which makes your documents really interesting. And you could take it to a file on your machine also, so you could have it play around with that. Probably not so much of that one. So you can do a bunch of things with the right click down here. Go to paragraph right here. Notice it's the same type things. And it gives us the numbers we've already chosen from up top. So we can choose permutations, choose the spacing around it accordingly. And we've even got an option of if they're the same paragraphs are the same style to tell it don't space between these paragraphs as opposed to other paragraphs that are a different style to change. And that was those other options we had up the top. We'll really touch on those. Here's our line spacing. So you can also control that one, how much space is between the lines. This one will actually give definitions you're used to. Because if we pull down on, we can do it on the numbers over there, or we can drop down on here. And notice what it's got right there, old words on it. Single spacing, double spacing, and 1.5 lines, or exactly, or at least, and you can choose some other options on it, but you can choose to double space your document right there. And double space Word. Not having to go in and choose points of this line spacing. Okay, but this requires you to highlight it, the whole area you want this to apply to. Okay, does everybody follow on that? And actually, if you do it before you typed anything in at the very beginning, when you open the document and you right-clicked at that point and chose this, then it's going to apply to everything you're typing in. But if you already started typing anything in, even if you deleted it back off, because Word throws all kinds of stuff out there. Once it starts going, you've probably jumped over some spots. You don't know it because it's all hidden. If any of you go back to WordPerfect, have ever used WordPerfect, WordPerfect would actually let you see, do a reveal codes and see all of those codes sitting out there. Word doesn't, without going through a lot of extra work, which is what I liked on WordPerfect. You could see what you were doing. You could actually see what really was happening. So when you was told to bold something, you could see the bold code start and the bold code end.
You can see that in Word.
You can see that, but it gets
Yeah,
harder to see,
activated.
and then they throw all kinds of extra codes in there of a ton of stuff. Y'all wouldn't believe the amount. As a matter of fact, I'll let y'all see. So let's close this. Again, it doesn't work real well for me to try to look at the screen while moving the mouse. So if I come back to File and I do, we can actually do it by reveal somehow, but I can't remember. But let me show you just where it generates a web page from this. Okay, so I'm going to do Browse. I'm just going to go wherever on my machine. That won't make any difference. I'm going to do Web Page, Save. I'm going to open WordPad back. I don't have WordPad still open, do I? Oh, Notepad will work fine. file open. And I'm not going to open the document file. I'm going to open the one with HTML on it this time, which the modified should put at the top of the list. Oh, I'm not looking at all documents right now. There it is. This is an HTML file. And look at when it created a web page from this thing, which looks just like what we were just looking at on the screen. The ton of stuff, and notice that until we got right here, we really didn't see what was typed in there, because what you typed in there actually appears here, and here's our codes around the stuff. Told us our font family is Arial, sans serif. And it told us to align right, because remember we chose right alignment on it when I had been in it there. And so it's got all of that junk in there, so it's got 3 billion things.
What's all the extra code for then? Because that's not even necessary.
Them putting in there all of every little thing they think may be applying, and that's what all the spans are, and where they keep turning stuff off and on that really stays on.
So they automatically put everything in there, and if you don't use it,
it just stays there. And so you're really better off if you're writing a web page, write the code yourself from HTML. Like I say, when I do actually use this to do quick and dirty when I do the BB gun match. I've got to put their scores out there, and they're in Excel format. I tell Excel to quick do this, and I can put it out there on the web, and it's quick and dirty, it's basic. But I'll turn around and I'll go in and code it myself, and then I'll put some extra colors and stuff in there. And have a whole lot smaller and more efficient pages. All right.
On the ribbon under Home, if you go over here under Tell Me what you want to do, you'll see a paragraph.
Is that where it is?
Sign or symbol.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay, where'd it go? Again, I'm trying to do that impossible part of coordinate big screen. And if we go to Home,
there, and then right underneath Tell Me, there's a paragraph symbol.
There.
That's it.
There. That will turn on and show us a number of. That will show us, for instance, and that's a good one for me to hit right here, the exponential. That tells you where you have actually hit enter to mark the end of the paragraph, where as opposed to here, I was typing through. And I just kept on typing and it automatically went to the next line. I did not hit enter, so if I change my margins, those are going to change. This one's still going to apply because that's a hard enter. And that's actually at the end of the paragraph. Y'all follow on that? Now, it doesn't show us everything completely like we were saying right there, but it does give you the paragraph symbols. And that can be handy at times to tell yourself, here's where I've got a physical thing, and you can actually delete those off there just like they were a regular character, but you don't normally see them, okay? But that's where you hit enter as you were typing. So when I type just for you, period, I hit enter. But I did not hit enter on line 12, 13, 14. That just swept around. If I was changing margins of paper, that's going to change back and forth. This one will stay this line right here. Anyway.
I saw those years ago when I was on the computer, and it was like, what did I do to make that there?
But that's where you turn the paragraph symbols on and off, is hitting the paragraph symbol. Good point out there, Linda.
And it also will show you what you bold, what you italicize, underline, what strike through. It shows you all these other features that you put in. That, let's say you go to something and you bold it, and you keep trying to unbold it, but it won't do it. You can hit reveal codes under that and go to where you were, and it'll show it, and you can backspace over it, and it'll leave it out.
So, and notice there, here, it's the other one it is showing to us right here. Y'all may not see it from y'all seats. But it's actually got everywhere I hit a space. The space is now a dot, a center dot. So it says recently Google started dot. And the dot tells us we've got an actual space typed right there. If I had have done, like you used to be taught in typing, a double space between two things, it would actually show that to me. So I'd know I've got two spaces, where when you don't have the paragraph symbol on, you wouldn't know that you've got two spaces right there, other than the grammar checker will catch that one on you and tell you that you've got a grammar error because you've got two spaces right there, which you may want two spaces. Okay? So that's a handy one, and they actually did mention that right here, so that belongs. I think we've covered everything in Word 1, Chapter 1, plus a little extra, because I've thrown you some other stuff that hopefully is useful to you. Some of it's not real useful, because doing the HTML page from it may or may not be to you, although it is to him. So for some of you, if you did want to create a quick and web page, you can do it from Word. You can go in and type in how you want the web page to look, save it as HTML, and you've got a web page you can upload to a web server, and you've got it there. So you can create them real quick and simple on that and not know anything about HTML. Okay? So, and you'll actually find some people that do web pages that's what they're doing, and that's about all they know, that they really don't know HTML. The other part is you can open up that HTML document in Notepad or WordPad and see all the codes. Now and the way I originally learned HTML was there was a real quick, simple editor out there back in the 90s called Hot Dog, and it would generate pages, but it generated clean code. And that I had somebody, when I said I wanted to learn something about HTML, actually one of my students wanted to learn about it in '95, and I wanted to learn too, and she asked this guy she was online with in New Jersey that did web page stuff, was saying he did, and he said, well, go out there and just generate a page in Hot Dog. And then he said, look at what it generated. And he said, and with what y'all already know, because we said we knew Word Perfect and Word, he said, with what you already know, you'll be able to figure out HTML. And he was correct, because then we could look at it, because in HTML, to bold something, it puts a bracket, a greater than sign, B, less than sign, B, greater than sign, so it puts it in brackets. Make it easier to draw on the board. To say to start bolding, and then whatever you're bolding is typed right there, and then stop it. There's a slash and a big. So anything you see, if you looked in HTML that has a slash on it, let's say stop, whatever it is, and it's usually simple little codes, like I just said, B for bold, I for italics, etc.
HTML, what is that acronym?
That's Hypertext Markup Language.
Thank you.
What is it? Hypertext Markup Language. That's what your web pages are all written in. They're at least basic in HTML. That's why when you look at web pages, when you type in addresses, sometimes you got to type this in, sometimes you don't. That they either end in HTML or HTML. And it's literally what the name right there says. It's hypertext markup. You're just marking up a document. With hypertext says that then you're putting links in there to link to other pages. So you're hypering from one page to another page.
Okay. I had another question.
So I've told you way beyond this class.
In Word, on the templates, if you select a template, you want to create a document. Gee, I like that template. Mm-hmm. Now you're creating your document, and then all of a sudden, well, gee, I need to add a little something that's not in this template. Can you modify that?
Yes.
You can. Okay.
And when you save it, you'll save it as a Word document, not as a template.
Okay.
Okay? You can actually go and change templates also, but that's way advanced.
Yeah,
but you can, and when you type your document, you can change once you're in there typing into that template, you can change things around. So you can use it purely as a template, as a starting point, okay, and then expand as you want off of the whole thing. Okay? But when you do your save, if you did open the template, it should by default go to Word document, but just make sure when you go to do your save, when you do that initial save, well, let's go ahead and go to mine. That notice down here what it does say. Notice the template. You don't want to save as template, or you will change the template. You'll put a template out there instead of putting a document. You want it as Word document.
You save it as your own document.
And that saves it as a document and not as the design thing. Because template should be just a design that you work from. And so you want to make sure you save it as a document, not as a template. If somebody was going to be using this document on an older version of Word, that you knew people might be still using older versions of Word, which plenty of people are still using 97 to 2003 versions, then you got to save it there in that one, not that one, but that one, into the Word 97 to 2003 document, which saves it with a .doc extension, not .docx. If they're using 2003 or before, they cannot open docx, which is what the current version saves by default when you choose Word document. Okay? So typically I try to save stuff back in here, but some advanced features won't work back in there. So if it's got advanced features in it, which is way beyond this class, you definitely have to save it in this. But if it's just a basic document, you might want to save it in .doc to make it easy for everybody under the sun to open it. But a lot of Word documents that you do, they're just for you. You print them out for other people to use. But if you're going to send it to other people, you may, or you may hit the problem when somebody writes back and says, I can't open it. They're probably using 2003 or before.
So that's when you would save it to.
Then just do a save as Word 97-2003. Everybody follow on that part? So, and it's a totally different format it saves it in. All right, any other questions? We've used up the whole time period.